If somebody wanted to do an investigation into Christianity, where would you start?
If the resurrection of Jesus didn't happen, it's a house of cards.
You sure you want to give me that loaded gun?
I'm pretty sure you're not going to be able to pull the trigger.
I've spent my entire career as a journalist uncovering the truth. Until the day my wife presented me with the biggest story of my life.
I'm not going to lose my wife and my kids to something that I can't even reason with.
And what happened next changed me forever.
How can we even talk about historical evidence for the resurrection?
The Gospels are filled with contradictions.
The empty tomb is based on evidence. And isn't evidence your trade?
We all bet our lives on something.
The question is, what's it going to be?
As much as I would like to help out a fellow skeptic, what you're proposing is impossible.
Could Jesus survive being spiked to the cross?
There is no evidence of anyone ever surviving a full Roman crucifixion.
Just because I write something down and I bury it in the dirt, that doesn't make it true.
What I felt was something more real than anything I've ever felt in my life.
I'm praying for you.
Do you really want to know the truth, or
Is your mind already made up?
stop blaming me and the church and God and do your job?
No one's ever proven if the shroud is the actual burial cloth of the Christ. But whenever someone looks in those eyes for the first time, suddenly becomes a real person.
We're looking for people that want to improve their smile. Guys, my name is Bill Watson. I'm with Brighter Image Lab, and we do smile makeovers for people all over the world. The number one thing that you can do to improve your overall appearance is to improve your smile. These are real clients. This is a real before and after. This is a real before and after, and so is this one. Who would say, I don't want whiter teeth? Nobody would. The reason why they don't fix it is because they don't think it's possible. But you can have an amazing smile.
Lion of Judah, Yeshua, Mashiach, Lion of Judah, Agune Chemba, Yeshua, Mashiach, Lion of Judah, Agune Chemba, Yeshua, Mashiach, Lion of Judah, Agune Chemba. Give him a sound of praise. Yeshua, Mashiach, Lion of Judah, Agune Chemba, Yeshua, Mashiach, Lion of Judah, Agune Chemba, Yeshua, Mashiach, Lion of Judah. me shout and praise. He's the lion. Yes, you are the lion of
I'll let this play out for a minute. It's kind of making me feel pretty good. Just want to soak it in for a minute. Yeshua, HaMashiach, Lion of Judah, Makunechena, HaMashiach, Lion of Judah. To the Yah of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, we thank you today. I thank you for every mountain that you cross me over, for every valley that you see me through. Yeshua HaMashiach, my Savior, Yeshua. Isn't that horn just beautiful? Isn't it beautiful? Isn't it triumphant? It's royal. Yeshua, HaMashiach, Lion of Judah. Oh, Yeshua, HaMashiach, Lion of Judah. We need you to roar today. All right. Just give me a few more seconds to enjoy this. All right. Bless you. Shalom, shalom, shalom. Yeshua HaMashiach. Shalom, shalom, shalom. And again, I say shalom. I welcome you to another Sabbath at 7. Just making sure that the volumes and everything are down. Welcome you to another Sabbath at 7. I appreciate everyone for tuning in, to coming in, wherever you are. If you're on Spotify, if you're on YouTube, if you're on Periscope, if you're on Facebook, shalom to you. Today will be more of a sermon. Yeah. Today will be more of a sermon, a message. What I've done is I've infused my current battles with my ability that Yahweh has given me to prepare a people together. So what you're going to hear today is what I, as a sermonizer, as a speaker, as a person who delivers rabbinical truth, I'm infusing the ability to release the burdens that are on my life to you in a form of grace and truth, but also enable you not to receive the bleeding, but to receive the healing. All the while making sure that you receive the truth from the Torah, from the Tanakh, from the entire Word of God. Shalom. So put your pens down, whatever you take notes on today. I want you to just sit back and follow a story, follow a sermon. Here we go. First of all, I would like to thank every person that has been praying for me. In particular, my forward momentum to release. In spite of the design warfare that was meant to take me out. And also the prayers for my health. My undisclosed ailment is not what our land is currently blanketed with. However, it is of the stature that if I'm not fully attentive to it, then it can cause me to be vulnerable to the current pandemic situation if I'm not careful. Also, this will be the last week to indicate, let me just be clear, this will be the last week to indicate via email or direct message that you would like to receive a first shipment copy of the scriptures. Orders are forecasted to be shipped out by the next Sabbath, and all orders will be shipped on the same day to avoid any multiple shipping costs on my end. The next shipping date is tentatively scheduled for August 15th, so please make sure your request is sent no later than the 5th day of this coming week. If you have already made your request, your confirmation and payment link will be sent on the 5th day of this coming week also. If you have been one of those who sends emails with multiple questions for me to identify a multitude of questions about the scripture and its details, I want to refer you to the former Sabbaths that have been recorded to fulfill your concerns. This is in order to bring you up to speed with why a pure transliteration is needed for those who have begun the transition to learning the Hebrew language. moving forward, please understand that these scriptures are not Muslim. They are not some new religion. I'm not playing that game of enticing or making people feel comfortable with truth. It is the Holy Scripture, the Torah. It is the Tanakh. It is the Nebiim. It is the prophets. It is the first writings. It is the truth from the new covenant to the former covenant, all abiding together without translation. It is transliteration, so that the things that need to remain the same stay the same, and all the extra gobbledygook that has been put in the book can be shook. Moving forward to today's truth, I would again like to thank everyone for their prayers and patience, especially during the last 2 weeks. I am open and openly recognizing my own flaws, inconsistencies, improprieties, and in areas of my life that do not function at a pristine or even adequate level to some people, even to myself. Nonetheless, my task in the earth has not been recalled. It has, however, become more difficult as the information that Yahweh continues to stream to me has become thicker, and the mounting opposition to the release of this truth becomes more and more extreme in the face of dilapidating personal relationships, to the pressing of needing to live down known past and living up to unknown expectations. I find myself attempting to prove my pudding in the face of the same pudding critics who refuse to dip their spoon and take a taste. Speaking of taste, many chefs begin cooking not for the esteem of the New York Times or to be critically acclaimed by the masses, but they cook for the engagement and for the pleasure of those closest to them. Along the way, that chef identifies their extraordinary gift and begins to release their appetizing collections to the world at large. His or her calling to the world is to produce appetizing, palate-pleasing, delectable dishes for the world, and more importantly, to the remnant of people closest to them. An airline pilot shares the same plight. He or she has an obligation to effectively and safely maneuver people from one place to their final destination. And although that pilot may not be the best mother or the best father, they may not be the best at dealing with his or her emotions at home or abroad, this has nothing to do with their responsibility to remove themselves from bed and climb into that cockpit and fly those people to their next destination. Meanwhile, while flying turbulent wind and bad airline food happen to the passengers, this pilot, like the chef, must navigate without alarming the passengers or the guest that he or she has personal battles. Yet when the plane lands safely at its intended destination, Although the pilot's skills were needed and the prowess to understand all of the instrumentation on the plane was vital, both passenger and pilot alike understand that it was only by the grace of Yeshua that the wheels touched down safely on the ground. Now, after my own recent near-death experience in a car accident, my mental acuity and concentration and observation of the road did not keep me from only 3 feet of a fatal crash. It was the grace and the mercy of Yahweh that brought me through. Now back to the air, where the airline pilot disengages the last switch and applies the final parking lever and picks up the communication device and begins speaking. Ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived safely at our Deliverance Airport. But after he says, "Thank you for flying," he should say, "Although I left my problems at home untouched, and although I am not consistent in so many areas of my life, I somehow put it all aside and brought you to your destination. You have arrived here by grace, by the grace of Yahweh. Please know that I am not your God." Today, for the next 23 minutes and 57 seconds or that or thereabout, I would like to speak to you from the subject that I am not your Yahweh. In recent publication releases, a particular piece of information has been circulating concerning the supposed last words of Adolf Hitler. Yes, I said Adolf Hitler. Prior to being made aware of this material, I have been dealing with Yahweh streaming information to me about Hitler's operation in the earth. I have been teaching you during the Sabbath at 7 that the current inhabitants of the known geographical location that is Israel are in fact not the true or even the relative people of the Hebrew. In the month of August, I will be teaching on the exact same name and origin of these people. And while exposing the while exposing the connection and the DNA of the true Hebrew. This brings me back to the streaming prophetic download that I've been receiving from Yah concerning Hitler. Allow me to tell you a story in order to release the prophetic streaming download. Let's begin. Imagine that there is a young man with very little family, with no assets, no true abilities, and he is found wandering in a foreign land, clothed with no warm clothes, feet abandoned from shoes. And a band of individuals meet him and allege that he looks like a person who has committed some heinous crimes. They detain him and take him away to prison in a land far away from his. Again, he had very little family, just those nuclear in connectivity, a mother, a father, a couple of uncles, some sheep, and a little bit of land. Once he is imprisoned, others in the prison look at him, recall that he reminds them of a leader of a gang that is well known in the new land of that is foreign to him. Now, instead of denouncing the truth that he has no connection to this gang or to the leadership, he embraces it as it is the first time that he has ever felt accepted and a part of something. Because of this false confession, he lives an immaculate and plush life behind prison walls. The guards, the warden, the other prisoners treat him with high esteem because of his declared resemblance to this unknown gang leader. This young man, while incarcerated, reads every piece of literature and listens to every piece of information about the quote unquote gang. He learns the handshakes, he learns the customs, he learns the attitudes, and even adopts the principles of the known gang. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to him, members of a small sector of a rival gang inside the prison walls learn that one of the high-ranking leaders is being transferred to that very prison. And to avoid any clash with the upper echelon resident gang, this unknown gang keep their profile low because they don't want or don't have the manpower to compete with this affluent gang in his group. Now, the high-ranking member of the small gang has made his arrival below the radar to the prison. He seeks immediately to stake the claim to the throne of the prison system. Covertly, he finds out everything about this imposter and the head of the thriving gang, including his home, his uncles, his mother, his father, his sheep, his land. He learns of the whereabouts of the imposter's mother, father, uncle, sheep, and land. And although what he did not find out in all that information was that he was indeed an imposter. And all that high-ranking opposing gang member knew was that he needed to take out this person's reign with covert precision in order to complete his takeover. He then orders a hit on the plot of land, to burn it up, to kill the uncles and the sheep, and to subdue his mother, ordering all to be assassinated except for the mother. She will be kept alive as a final bargaining chip for the imposter to relinquish its prison throne. In accordance with the assassination mandate that all were killed, all was burned and taken from the imposter's home except for the mother. When the news finally reached back to the imposter and the imposter's gang, the opposing gang lieutenant who had just come into the prison exposed himself and his plan to take over the prison. He gave the imposter an ultimatum to relinquish his seat of power and to save the life of his mother or risk the only life that he cared about to be taken away. Of course, the imposter waved the white flag and reduced himself to a no form once again. But he could not tell his dilapidating gang and crumbling gang that he was an imposter, or he would risk his life as well as further risk the life of his mother. So he kept quiet and crumbled in the life and lived the rest of his life and his days in the prison in obscurity. The end. Now, the hidden truth in this story is that the imposter reaped the benefits of hijacking the name. Let me say again. The hidden truth in this story is that the imposter reaped the benefits of hijacking the name. He reaped the windfall by taking on the identity of the unknown people, but he also suffered the whirlwind that was tied to the DNA of those people. Before story time, I indicated to you that I have received streaming download, prophecy concerning understanding of the operation of Adolf Hitler in the earth. Adolf Hitler began being blinded. Now get this, being blinded by his own hatred, animosity, and venom towards the current Jewish land inhabitants. His own hatred and venom toward the current Jewish land inhabitants set out to destroy everything about them. He, being bound by his hatred and his known history of these people, but he never knew that they were imposters. Much like the Pharaoh, the Egyptian captivity, the Assyrian captivity, the Babylonian captivity, the Persian captivity, the Greek captivity, the Roman captivity, and even the American captivity. Yahweh pronounced judgment upon his chosen people in order to bring them to the end of themselves and back to the heart of their Abba, their Father. This is evident as we see that it is spoken in Wayikra, or Leviticus 26:44 through 45. And it reads, and yet for all this, when they are in the land of their enemies, I shall not reject them, nor shall I loathe them, so as to destroy them and break my covenant with them, for I am Yahweh, their Elohim. Then I shall remember for their sake the covenant of the ancestors, whom I brought out of the land of Mitzrayim, before the eyes of the nations, to be their Elohim. I am Yahweh. This judgment to cure rebellion was intended only for the DNA of Yahweh's people until the imposters hijacked the situation that was too good to pass on. Yahweh did not make Hitler murder thousands upon thousands of Khazarian squatters. Just like in the story, no one made the imposters assume the role of a gang he had no connection to, but he did, all on his own. Although Yeshua HaMashiach eradicated the stain of death and made life available to all people at this time, the imposters were made aware that their actions to take over a place and a process that was not theirs gave them access to spoils, but it also caused them a curse. And Yahweh uttered through action, I am not your God. Hitler's own hatred was a tool that Yahweh used to dispel a self-proclaimed people and at the same time allow his chosen people to a chance to return to obedience. Ironically enough, as Yahweh was removing the imposters by exposing that I am not your God, the true Hebrews were yelling back to Yahweh's process and emphatically yelling back at Yah's face, you are not my God. Now go back with me, if you would, please, to another form of you are not my God. Back to the pilot at the beginning of this message after the plane had landed and the destination had been reached. The passengers of the plane get off shook the hand of the pilot, thanked him for his passage, and continued to announce, "Yeah, but you are not my God." It's obvious that the pilot knows, by way of leaving all of his human flaws and incomplete situations at home, that he knew that he was not a God, that he knew that he, even with all of his training, understanding that he was but a man. But he was reminded by those who he helped to get to their destination that he was not their God. Hebrews and Gentiles alike, I would like to persuade you that the task of those bringing you to a revelatory experience to understand the truth that has been lied to you is not predicated upon our ability to be great or even better than you expect us to be in other areas of our life, but it is our charge to bring you to your destination and inform you that Yahweh is your Elohim and you are the people. Now, if you would please leave the airplane with me and journey to a place where Adolf Hitler carried out atrocities against a people who chose to take on the property and personhood of a people who were in the midst of judgment. The First World War played a decisive role in Hitler's life. It gave his life, which had been rather unsuccessful up until then, a new purpose. Now, in 1914, he enlisted in the German army, which, together with the Austro-Hungarian Empire, was fighting France, England, and Russia. Although he saw little action, he did receive an award for his courage shown. When Germany surrendered in November 1918, Hitler was in a military hospital. It is reported that his eyes had been hurt in a poison gas attack in Belgium. He was confined to his sick bed, and he heard, the German news. He heard the news of the German surrender. It plunged him into a deep crisis. Some would even say a depression. He wrote that this is what he wrote. He wrote that everything began to go black again before my eyes. Stumbling, he groped his way back to the dormitory and dug his head into blankets and pillows. The German defeat was hard to swallow for many Germans and for Hitler too. In nationalist, right-wing conservative circles, the phrase "stab in the back" legend became popular. Now, according to this myth, Germany did not lose the war on the battlefield, but through the betrayal at home on the front by the Jews, Social Democrats, and Communists. He held them responsible. But prejudices about the role of the Jews in the war were false. An investigation carried out by the German government proved this as much, that over 100,000 German and Austrian Jews had fought for their fatherland, as it has been reported. After the First World War, Germany was in chaos. Once the German Empire had gone, rebellion erupted everywhere. Left-wing groups tried to seize power in places. In Munich, for instance, a People's Republic of Bavaria was proclaimed during a brief revolution. It provoked a right-wing reaction, which in turn resulted in more bloodshed. Now, Hitler was very impressed by these events. At that point, he was still in the army, and that was where he discovered his ability to oratate. Before long, the army had given him training courses to teach, intended to warn soldiers of the communist dangers and to stir up feelings of nationalism. In his new role, Hitler got to know the German Workers' Party. This is called the Workers' Party, and the forerunner of the NSDAP. If you want more about that, I'm not going to go into that. You look that up. It was the start of his political career, in fact. Now, against the backdrop of the revolution and violence, Hitler's anti-Semitism was becoming increasingly more radical. It is noteworthy that he said he did not support uncontrolled outbursts of anti-Jewish violence. Instead, he argued for an anti-Semitism of the mind. Dangerous. It had to be legal and would ultimately lead to the removal of the Jews, the inhabitants of Israel. As early as August 1920, Hitler compared the Jews to germs. He stated that diseases cannot be controlled unless you destroy their causes. The influence of the Jews would never disappear without removing its cause. Hebrews, wake up and understand the infiltration of the removal of our causes to eradicate our movement. Now, he said that the Jews would never be removed unless you remove its causes from our midst. He said these radical ideas, and I quote, pave the way for what we must do next. It also paved the way, end quote, it also paved the way for the mass murder of the Jewish land squatters, imposters, the Khazarian people in the 1940s. Now, as tragic as this sin was, it was initiated with a people whom took on the likeness of a people whose Elohim was in full operation of declaring to his people that I am your Yah. And you are my people. All the while, people unhappy with their likeness and their place in the world stole grapes from the vines and necessitated the actionable words of Yahweh from Yahweh, I am not your God. Allowing the true Hebrew the right to understand who we are and bring us to the intended destination of truth. It is not just a successful landing for the Hebrew, but it is the successful arrival of all mankind at the feet of Yeshua HaMashiach. For as the intended people find their place safely through the turbulence of the mankind will fully fulfill every prophecy in the earth, and we will all fly the friendly skies to the arms of Yeshua. And as you fly, and you hear your captain speaking, please know that we are the pilots. We are the pilots. Are trying to become greater in our lives in order to help you navigate the skies and help you see exactly where and whom your Yahweh really is. Yirmiyahu, which you know as Jeremiah 32 says, see, I am gathering them out of the lands where I have driven them in. My displeasure and my wrath in great rage. And I shall bring them back to this place and shall let them dwell in safety. And they shall be my people and I shall be their Elohim. Verse 39 in Jeremiah, who says, and I shall give them one heart and one way to fear me all the days for the good of them and of their children after them. Jeremiah, 32 and 40 says, and I shall make an everlasting covenant with them, that I do not turn back from doing good to them. And I shall put my fear in their hearts so as not to turn aside from me. And I shall rejoice over them to do good to them, and shall plant them in this land in truth with all of my heart, says Yahweh, and with all of my being. For thus saith Yahweh, as I have brought all of this great evil on this people, speaking of the Hebrews, not the impostors, so I am bringing on them all the good that I am speaking to them. Fields shall be brought for silver, and deeds signed and sealed, and witnesses be called in the land of Benjamin, which is Benjamin, and the places around Jerusalem, and in the cities of Yehuda, Judah, and in the cities of the mountains, and in the cities of the low country, and in the cities of the south. For I shall turn back their captivity, declares Yahweh. They will be my people, and I will be their God. Hebrews and Gentiles alike, there is no difference between us. But we must understand that there is an Elohim who declares that I'm removing the stain away from those who have been impostors, not because they were so bad. Yes, it was an atrocity. It was terrible what happened to these people. But we must remain. We must remain in our place. We must remain in our seats so that Yahweh can carry us to our destination. Because I don't want to hear Yahweh say to me ever, I am not your Yah. I want to follow the path that he has for me. And I ask you, as I continue to reveal this rabbinical truth, keep me in your prayers. I want your love. You. I want your love. But I cannot make that decision for you. You must decide. Until next time, I bid you shalom. And to the Yah of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, our Yah, I say to you, with no more indication, now unto him that is able to keep us from falling, and present us before his presence with exceeding joy, to the only wise God, that if my people, who are called by my name, would humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven. Then will I forgive their sins. Then will I, heal their land, but give them access to who he really is. Shalom.